after I decided to take up the GMAT test, then the next step that I went for was to chalk out a plan for my studies. So in the process, I zeroed in on a few online courses, and the course that I adopted was the Newton GMAT. After that, the Newton GMAT itself has a course structure of its own, so it's very important that I stuck to that plan, and I kept practicing and doing the mock tests on time. So one very important thing that I realized in my course of study was taking mock tests even before your exam, taking about 2 to 3 mock tests and then analyzing the results. So that was one key part of my preparation, that after each practice test or a mock test, I would actually sit down and spend an equal amount of time maybe to go through all the questions again, whether right or wrong, because a wrong question, for obvious reasons, you need to know how to do it right, and a right question because you need to know whether the approach that you had adopted was right or wrong. So that was basically my method of study. Planning to take the GMAT in the future, please remember that it's not, if something fits someone, does not necessarily have to fit you. So understand what kind of, environment of study that you want, understand what kind of coaching that you would need, and based on that assess the kind of study material that you are going to look for. So it can be an online course, it can be the official guide, it can be anything, but what works for someone need not necessarily work for you. So understand what you want yourself first. Having said that, then you have your usual, you have to really religiously sit and practice every practice test and a mock test, and after that analyze your own results, understand where you are in terms of doing the number of questions right, and where you're losing time, and it's very important to time yourself also. Extremely important to keep your cool and remain motivated, and give your best to the test.
In order to prepare myself for the GMAT, I started off by buying the book, the official GMAT guide from MBA.com, and then went thoroughly through it, and after that I went on to test series. I went through a lot of practice papers, and I used to, after each paper, I used to review myself, and I used to analyze which sections I'm strong and which sections I'm weak, and focus on my weaknesses. So this helped me improve on my weaknesses, and which helped me increase my overall score. GMAT is a 4-hour test, so taking it can be very strenuous, as in you can lose concentration midway. So for that, it is essential that you sit through the entire practice paper at one go, and just take breaks according to the GMAT timings, when there's a break in the GMAT schedule. Also, one important thing I would feel is the timing, that suppose you have a GMAT exam in the morning from 8 to 12. So I would advise you to take the timing at that point only, so that your mind is focused, is sharpened at that time, which will help you later during the GMAT exam.
The first mode I used was the official guide of GMAT. After that, I took the 2 practice tests available on MBA.com, and I had also subscribed to Veritas preparation material, so I learned from that. I think timing is very important in the GMAT, and timing of the verbal part of the GMAT is especially important. Reading all the comprehensions in the perfect time gives you an additional benefit.
To prepare for GMAT, I had undergone a crash course of 1 month in Delhi. Post to that, while I was working in Nigeria, there was a lot of time gap between the time I had studied for the exam and I gave the exam, so I could not land up with a good score. The reason primarily being was I was out of practice. So I think the official guide which is provided by the GMAT prep tests which they post on the website, the Kaplan guide, the test series of Kaplan. So basically they give me an idea where I'm standing after each exam. And so I would focus basically on the GMAT prep tests, the official guides and the test series to judge my score and appear for the GMAT. To crack the GMAT, I would suggest everyone to focus basically on the verbal ability, since that is the trickier part. Most of the people from India applying to GMAT are engineers, so maths is an easy option for them, but the verbal ability is a bit tricky, and time management is very important, so don't forget to time yourself on the clock and give as many test series as possible. Once you are ready to give the exam, go for the official test which is launched on the GMAT website, give the exam, and according to my experience, you would land up in a plus minus 20 range of that score.
For me, preparation for GMAT was pretty straightforward. First I did the book called Princeton Review. After that, there was this book called Barron's, and finally I ended my whole preparation with the GMAT official guide. And for me, it was, I think, not more than three weeks that it took me to prepare for my GMAT. The best part about GMAT is that if your maths, for most of the Indian applicants, it's great, so you don't have to worry about that. In English, the only problem is with the verbal section is the sentence correction. In that case, if you're bad with sentence correction, it takes a really long time for you to get it done, so that's the trickiest part of GMAT. And the exam is a really long exam, so you need to make sure that your energy levels are constant throughout the exam and you don't get bogged down by the end of it.
The GMAT official guide by Princeton Review was an extremely critical, important resource for preparing for GMAT. Over and above that, I use other sources from Princeton Review, from Kaplan, and also MBA.com has two tests that they offer, and which gives you a very good idea about the actual GMAT. So at the end of it, if you just basically have a structured plan and keep on practicing, I think it is pretty simple to crack the GMAT.